Welcome to Youth Focus Oakland's Future. On this program, we ask the tough questions.
Our special guest today is the Chief of Oakland Police Department, Chief Howard Jordan. Joining him is Lieutenant LaShawn Armstrong with Youth Services. Thank you both for joining us. My name is DeMario Williams. I'm a graduate from Fremont High School, class of '06, and I'm a member of Youth Uprising.
And I'm Stephanie Vega. I'm a freshman at Castlemont High School and also a member of Youth Alive. Chief Jordan, according to the Oakland Police Department numbers, 14 young people, all 18 years old and younger, were murdered last year. Please define what public safety means to you.
Well, thank you for asking that question. And last year was a particularly sad year for us because not only did we lose 131 people, but of the 131, 14 of them were young people under the age of 18, and several of them were young women. As a father of two young teenagers, that really struck home to me because any of those people could have been my daughters, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone. So those things really eat at the heart of not only me, but all the members in our department, because we really want to strive to make Oakland safe. And when their young people are killed, it really has a big impact on us. None of us really take that lightly because we feel that we're eradicating the future of this of the city and of this society by not giving young people an opportunity to live. What public safety means to me is giving the officers the resources necessary to fight crime in Oakland, to make Oakland safer. It also means that working closely with the community, not just adults, but young people such as yourself, to make a difference in Oakland. That means that community members, church leaders, civic groups, businesses, all have to play a role in making Oakland safe. It's not just the police's responsibility. We will take the bulk of the share of work to be done because that's our job, that's our profession, but it's a team effort, and that is what we're striving for here in 2013 to make Oakland safer.
Thank you, Chief Jordan. Violence and crime has touched many of us. Panelists, can you please raise your hand if you've ever been a victim of a crime? Can you please raise your hand if you know anybody who's been shot? Can you please raise your hand if you know anybody who's been killed? Lynn Christina has the next question. My fault.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Lynn Christina Melchor, and I go to Skyline High School. I am 18 years old, and I'm in the 12th grade. The organization I am a part of is All City Council. And my question to you today is, where should youth go for recreation at night? Places like Youth Uprising close at 7 p.m. Rec centers aren't open. Where can we be safe, or where would you go? And to add to that, I heard that you have two daughters. So where would you recommend your daughters to go, since you said that, you look out for them and everything?
Well, I can tell you, with my daughters, this is my personal feeling. I like them to be, if they're not at my house, it's someone's house that I know, a friend's house, and we have a policy in my home that if they go to someone's house, we have to know the parents, and that is how I was raised. I wasn't allowed to go to someone's house that my parents didn't know. And I can't expect that for everyone in Oakland, but that is just my personal preference in terms of my daughter's safety. My oldest daughter drives. She's been driving for over a year now. She has a curfew. She has to be home by 10 o'clock during the week and at 12 o'clock on the weekend. So we do give them some latitude, but if they're going places that are not what they said they were going to be, they have to let us know. We don't stop them, but we want to know where you are, because as a parent and as a policeman, the last thing I need is a phone call from somewhere that my daughter's been injured, or been involved in an accident, and I don't know where she is, or there's something missing. So we're a very close family, and we expect that my daughters follow the rules, in which they did. In terms of what kids do, it's very challenging for kids today to find a safe place to actually hang out as a group. Many communities have teen centers, but I've been told those are not places that a lot of teens want to go to because they don't have the things that you want to do. I did a tour here a minute ago when I came here. This seems like a really nice place for kids that want to learn how to do audio video. I know my youngest daughter is a budding video artist. I think if she had an opportunity to come to a place like this on a Friday night versus staying at home, that this is something that she would choose. So my question is, find a place that's safe. Either someone else's home. Where you don't want to be is on the street loitering. And that's an issue that I think in terms of making people safe, it's not safe for people to be out, kids to be out on the street in certain areas of Oakland past a certain hours. That's just the way things are because of what's taken place in Oakland these last few years, the violence and things that could happen. You could be an innocent person walking down the street that could be subjected to violent behavior, and that is something that I do not promote or condone as far as young people in this community being exposed to.
Thank you. For the next question, we go to Amalia.
Hello, my name is Amalia. I go to Castlemont High School. I'm a freshman and I'm with Youth Alive. My question to you is, when youth are on the street, how are police officers trained to respond to them? And is it different from how adults get treated?
Well, we train our officers to be respectful of everyone, regardless of your age. Obviously, we deal with a wide variety of people in this community, but I expect my officers to treat everyone with dignity and respect. If they're dealing with a hostile situation, then they have to deal with people differently. But we what we train our officers to do is to have the person you're contacting dictate how you're going to react. So if an officer talks to you and your response is professional and polite, you may not like what the officer is talking about, then I expect the officers to treat you the same way. Now, in some cases, obviously, if you're a victim of a crime, then we have to show a little more sensitivity because you may be injured, and something like that may cause you to act differently. So we have to be sensitive to that. And with young kids, you have to be particularly patient as well, because versus dealing with an adult or someone that's a senior. It also depends on the circumstances that you're dealing with. So without knowing too many of the issues that you're trying to address, I would say in a broad sense, I expect my officers to treat everyone professionally with respect, the same way that they would expect either themselves or their relatives to be treated by another officer.
Chief Jordan, our next panelist, has a very interesting survey to share with us. Shawn.
My name is Shawn Stiff. I go to Frick Middle School. My age is 14. The organization I'm with is called Spark. Chief Jordan, a couple months ago, I did a survey to my fellow students at Frick. I asked them these questions, and here's what I found out. I asked them if they trusted the police. Most of them said no, about 70%. I asked if something happened, would they go to the police or take care of it themselves. Most of them answered that they will go to the police and not try to keep it to themselves. My question to you is, what concerns you most about Oakland?
Okay. What concerns me most about Oakland is the escalating violence, the lack of resources to address that, to make Oakland safe. And really, since we're talking about kids, what is happening in the Oakland schools right now to make kids better in terms of what they learn and exposure to things that will make them go to college, get a job, do things that will make them want to become police officers, firefighters, doctors, nurses. So when you look at the graduation rate of the Oakland Public Schools, about 50% of African-American males graduate from high school. That's people that look like me and you, okay? That is a concern to me, because what does that tell you about the future? The future is not bright. So how are we going to change that? What are we doing to make the schools safe, which we've done? The city's actually done a very good job of providing security to make the schools safer for kids to go to and from school. We have a very good program at your school, the OK Mentoring Program, that Lieutenant Armstrong has been in charge of. So those are things that we're doing to make school safer, because I understand, I know that trying to get to school, staying in school, and going home from school could be very, very challenging with all the other things that happen in a kid's life, the safety around school. So we got to make sure that we're doing our job, along with working with the school district and the city, to make schools safe so that people can go there, get an education, go to college, and get a good job. Those are the three things I actually preach to my kids. Go to school, get an education, get a good job. Okay? If you can do those three things, you'll be on your way to a successful career. You can become the police chief.
Thanks, Chief Jordan. Let's go to LaShawn.
Hello. My name is LaShawn Nolin Jr. I'm 17 years of age. I go to Dewey High School, and I represent the Urban Peace Movement, an organization that implements peace and change in our communities. What is stop and frisk, and will it ever be implemented in Oakland, even by another name or strategy?
Okay. Stop and frisk is a term that was used several years ago. It actually was done in 1968 during a case law. The case is called Terry versus Ohio, where Terry was a young man that the police stopped. The Supreme Court ruled that the officer had reasonable suspicion to stop him and frisk him based on what was taking place at the time. That was in 1968. So that has been the genesis for police throughout the country to adopt a policy that allows them to stop people based on reasonable suspicion. And that is a practice that we use here in Oakland. You have to have a reason to stop someone. The officers are trained that way. I think the public expects that if you're someone that's involved in criminal behavior, that the police should stop you in order to investigate. But you can't just drive down the street, get out your car, and stop someone for no reason at all. We don't teach that. We don't expect that from our officers. We don't condone that. None of my officers want to do that. Okay? We want to have a reason to stop you. If we don't have a reason to stop you, we're not going to stop you. So there's been a lot of publicity around stop and frisk that I think was unwanted, because it's something that has got a negative connotation. But the real issue with stop and frisk is that it really should be called reasonable suspicion to stop and search. That is the case law. That is the law that we operate by. That's our policies. That's our training. That's what I expect my officers to do. That's what we get paid to do. And that's what the community expects, is that if someone is involved in criminal behavior and the police sees them involved and see them involved in that, and they have a reason to stop them, I expect my officers to stop them and develop enough reasonable suspicion to search them.
Thank you, Chief. Our next panelist has a follow-up question.
Does the police department have a program to educate the public, especially young people, about their rights? If someone is pulled over or questioned by an officer, and if not, will you?
We used to run a program inside of all the Oakland high schools when the Oakland Police Department was assigned as the school resource officers, where we would go into government classes at all the high schools and teach a course about rights, about your rights, about the laws, and what it was when you heard reasonable suspicion, or all of these different terms that we use in order to be able to stop you. We currently don't patrol the high schools now, but we do have 6 middle schools that we deal with in the city. In those middle schools that we're assigned to, we do those things. We offer those things in those social study classes in those middle schools, so that we have an opportunity to answer questions about your rights, about laws. These were things when I grew up in Oakland, going to high school here and going to middle school, that I didn't have the opportunity to learn. So being the commander of that unit, that's really important to me, that we answer those questions, that you know what your rights are, and that you understand when you're being detained, and know that you have a right to ask, are you free to leave, which is really important. Like the chief spoke of earlier, we know that our officers understand when they have the right to stop people, and that's what we expect them to do. But we believe also you should be informed about your rights and when you're being stopped and what you have the right to do or not do.
Chief, I want to share my experience with you. After I was shot at, me and my godbrother, I hid behind a camper, and I was bloody from neck to below my waist. And when the police came, they asked me what happened, but then they immediately approached me about why I was hiding behind the camper. Like, did I get rid of any evidence, any weapons? And then after that, I immediately felt like the criminal. Like, why did they approach me like that?
I'm sorry that happened to you, but without knowing a lot of details, without having the opportunity to either read the report or talk to the officers, I'm really at a disadvantage in terms of answering that question. I can tell you that that is not something that you know, we condone in terms of the way we treat victims of crime. It appears that you were a victim. So, and without knowing more about your situation, it's kind of hard to really say what the officers did, but based on what you said, it doesn't appear like that's a proper way that I would want the officers to treat you. But I'd be happy to talk to you some more about it once I find out what actually took place. So, okay.
I think one of the things I'll say about that too is that sometimes citizens may not understand what the officer is hearing and what information he's provided when he's responding to a crime. We get information from multiple different sources that call in and give us what they perceive as occurring. And sometimes someone that's a victim may be described as a suspect. Some information that the officers have is coming very quickly, and they have to vet that information. I'm not saying that that's any excuse for what happens, but the officers tend to, first thing they deal with is the safety issue, right? I mean, they can't do their job until the scene is safe for them to go out and provide aid or be able to investigate what happened. So I think sometimes we interpret the officers as not maybe being as quickly responding to your needs, but sometimes it's a minute to assess for us and a minute to kind of vet out the information that we're receiving so that the officer knows how to properly respond to the call sometimes.
Thank you, guys. The next question comes from Tony.
How you doing? So, there's times where I'm just hanging out with my friends in the corner, you know, chilling, and we are stopped and just like basically questioned and lightweight interrogated, you know, just for no reason. And it states that, and the Supreme Court says that any police stop must be justified by some objective manifestation of criminal activity. So how do you make sure officers are preventing crime by not racially profiling? And what would you suggest we dress and act like, being that most of the time we are judged off of what we're wearing?
As I mentioned earlier, one of my questions, my answers, you know, we spend a lot of time training officers on how to interpret the law so that we're not improperly applying case law in order to detain someone. And there's a lot of case law that allows a police officer to do search. We operate in a box, and so there's no gray area when it comes to stopping someone. Obviously, the biggest tool that we use, or guidelines we use, is the Fourth Amendment, which guarantees your freedom against unreasonable search and seizure. So there's a lot of case law that governs the way that we treat you and when we can stop you and what we can do with you. So, but we spend a lot of time training on that, not just in the academy, but throughout an officer's career. We get frequent updates because the law changes all the time. And without knowing specifically what happened to you, I can say that every stop that an officer makes on someone, when it's not a dispatch call, they're required to document the reason for the stop and what happened after that stop, so we can account and look at what happened and whether we review those documents to make sure that officers aren't being discriminate in terms of stopping people for no reason at all. We talk about stop and frisk, so Fourth Amendment also, that Terry stop issue that we talked about, goes to the heart of stop and frisk, having a reasonable suspicion. So the Supreme Court decision that you read actually is a byproduct of the Terry stop, which further defines why and when an officer can stop you and what are some of the justifications that they have to have in order to stop you. In terms of your dress, I am not a fashion designer at all, and I don't want to play one here because I don't know what people wear. I know I don't dress like this when I'm not you know, on duty. I dress like you. I wear a t-shirt and jeans. I wear a hoodie. I wear all those things. So, but I think it really comes down to how you act, and not really how you dress, because there's some, you know, you don't really know who you're dealing with based on their dress. I think if officers are out there stopping you because of what you're doing and not the way that you look and the way you're dressed, I think that's what I expect from my officers.
I have a follow-up question also. So basically, Youth Uprising recently had a gun buyback, and the program got about 400 guns off the streets, and even after that, people were still being killed. So my question is basically, do you feel that was effective, and does OPD plan on having more frequent gun buybacks?
Yes, it was effective. Yes, we want to have more. We cannot pay that money, so we're looking for a private donor because that's how we got the first one. The money was donated from a private organization to Youth Uprising to sponsor the program. We were just there to collect it. In terms of the violence that continued afterwards, I think that's a good question. And just to put that in context, we actually recovered about 460 guns. We turned people away after the first 400, and they came back and we recovered another 60 because they ran out of money later on that week. But the fact that we recovered 460 guns and we still had shootings tells you the level of guns that are out there in the street. Okay, this year alone, last year during a period between around this time from February 1st to June 1st. We had the ATF. If you don't know what ATF is, the federal law enforcement agents that deal specifically with gun trafficking, gun violence, and gun issues. They licensed dealers. They came to Oakland and brought a lot of resources, took a lot of guns off the street. It took about 464 guns off the street just in that period alone. And we still had the highest murder rate in about the last 5 years. That just tells you how much guns are out there. And the real solution is really trying to get people to turn more guns in and having people tell us where those guns are so we can find the people that are carrying those guns illegally, arrest them and remove them off the street and recover those guns.
Chief Jordan, we're now going to take a question from Lee.
My name is Lee Simmons. I go to Castlemont High School, and I'm in the 11th grade, and I represent Youth Alive. Concerns of the implementation of gang injunctions include racial profiling, discrimination, and money. Specifically, how do you plan to exclude the use of discrimination in the gang injunction, and how much money has been spent on it, and would the money have been better spent on programs beneficial to youth?
I don't know what the final tally is for the cost of the gang injunction. Obviously, we want to use as many tools as we can to be able to address crime. The city fought to get those injunctions and a judge approved it. I felt it was the right thing to do at the time because the people we were focusing on were responsible for a lot of violent crime in those particular areas. And what we've seen since the gang injunction is that crime in those areas have been reducing steadily. Now, that's not to say that crime in other parts of the city has not been increasing, and we don't know if there's a correlation between those two. And I forgot the first part of your question. So,
First part was, how do you plan to exclude the use of discrimination in the gang injunction?
So with the court order is pretty specific about what officers can do, who they can, who the gang injunction applies to. So it's really a defined direction from the court on who could be, where it can be used, who it applies to, what some of the sanctions are, and the tactics that officers can use in order to enforce the injunction. The injunction is a court order saying, you know, these people can't be in this area during this period of time, and that's what we follow in terms of the terminology and the doctrine of the gang injunction.
Our next panelist is Carmen.
Hi, my name is Carmen Jimenez. I'm a sophomore at Fremont, and I'm with All City Council. And my question is, what is the difference between officers with the Oakland Police Department and the Oakland Unified School District?
He needs your mic.
So the difference is that the officers that work for the Oakland Police Department work for the city of Oakland, and they work for Chief Howard Jordan. We handle all crimes in the city of Oakland. The Oakland Unified School District Police is a police department that works for the school district, and their responsibility is Oakland Public Schools. We assist them and we work in partnership with them, and so we use the same radios. We come if they need us, and they do the same for us. They actually use our dispatchers, and we actually investigate their reports. So we work in a partnership, but it's two separate police departments. One is ran by the district, and the other one is ran by the city through Chief Howard Jordan.
And the follow-up question comes from Nyla.
Hello. My name is Nyla Kelly. I go to Coliseum College Prep Academy. I'm 17. I'm in the 11th grade, and I'm with Black Organizing Project. And the question is, we understand that the city of Oakland has gotten $10 million from the federal government to put city police in schools. What is the role of those police officers in the schools, and is there any oversight, assess the effectiveness of the city police officers in the schools?
Yes. So I'm the commander of the schools officers that are funded by that $10 million grant. And how we use those officers is in two ways. One of the things that the grant requires is that we provide safety around campuses, what we call safe passage, which is we go out in some schools a mile radius, in other schools a 2-mile radius. Our officers patrol around those schools to ensure that young people are able to safely come to and from school. So they're there before school and after school. We have 6 schools in the city that we cover currently. We also have a mentor officer in each one of these 6 schools. Those officers are there to help assist the schools with issues that might happen on campus, with safety plans on campus, with meeting with young people who might have questions about law enforcement, to try to identify young people that might have some issues that they might want to bring to law enforcement, and to also make relationships on campus. One of their main jobs is to work directly with the students and make relationships, be open to questions. Like I mentioned earlier, go into classes and teach classes about the law, about some of the things that you might not understand about law enforcement, and hopefully change some people's minds about professions or careers that they might want to go to, and hopefully they take on the law enforcement career in the Oakland Police Department. So that's really the function of our school officers.
The next question comes from Armika.
Hi. My name is Armika Eifert. I'm a junior at Castlemont High School, and I'm here today with Youth Alive. My question for you today is, how many police officers do you believe OPD needs to effectively get the crime rate down?
We need 1,000 officers, and I've said that publicly, and I will say it again. Realistically, once you hire 1,000, because of our attrition rate, we'll probably have about 925 actually working the street. But in order to get to 925, we have to hire 1,000 officers.
Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Victor.
Hello, my name is Victor Mercado. I am part of MEA, Media Enterprise Alliance at KDOL. I'm 18 years old, and I am a senior at Oakland Tech. So the question is the following. There are reports that police officers have not been responding to burglaries. How do you intend to address and prioritize the response to crimes?
Okay, can you repeat that question? Is the question about the not responding to burglaries or not responding to crime?
Not responding to burglaries, and how do you intend to address and prioritize the response to crimes? Okay.
I'm not sure where that question came from, but we expect officers to respond to all crimes that they're dispatched to. That's our job. That's what we've been looking at in terms of getting adequate staff to respond quicker. The criticism we've received is that we're not responding quick enough, which is a fair criticism, because when people get their homes broken into, they expect the officers to be there right away, and sometimes we're not able to do that because there are other priorities. And when you talk about priorities, in a city that is as complex and as busy as Oakland is, I have to weigh the response time based on life versus property. And officers are sent to calls where someone's life is in danger. quicker or as a priority versus a call where someone's property is in danger of being damaged or lost. And that's been the confusion about our response to certain calls. So if you're being affected or impacted by a call or someone that's impacting your life, you're going to get a quicker response. And I know that sometimes that's not well received by this person that's having their homes broken into, but in a perfect world with 925 officers, we'd be able to respond to all those calls effectively, which is something we would like to do at some point. But I got to share that some of the things we're doing in the department to impact that, we can't sit around and wait for 925 officers because they're not going to come overnight. So we're looking at ways to reduce the type of calls that officers are required to go to and shift some of that to other places, use technology to minimize the number of calls officers go to. For example, we respond to a lot of calls for barking dogs and animals, which we have an animal control unit that we're looking at assigning that to them. Hiring the civilian technicians that the council approved, the 20, to allow officers, when you tow a car, an officer has to remain with the car until the tow truck arrives, and sometimes that can take an hour. So and you don't need an officer to do that, but because we don't have non-sworn personnel available, we sometimes officers are stuck doing that. So by hiring civilians, non-sworn personnel, to sit on those tows, wait for the tow truck, that frees up officers to respond to calls more effectively.
Our next question is about recruiting police officers.
My question for you is, people from dozens of different cultures and backgrounds live in Oakland. How do you train police officers to be culturally sensitive?
Well, it starts with what we do to recruit them. And just as by way of education, we're actually in the process of recruiting people for our class that starts next year in September. So one of the things we look at is people that obviously, if you're from Oakland or you're from an urban environment, we'd like to consider you as one of our top candidates, because we feel it's important that people from urban environments have more experience in dealing with urban issues, and Oakland is an urban environment with a lot of issues that we feel that people from this type of settings, make better officers. But once you get into the academy, we spend a lot of time teaching you on the expectations of the community. We started a class with this particular class that's going to graduate in March, which I brought in people from the community to share their experience with these new officers so that they know what the community's perception is about policing in Oakland. A lot of the things that we've learned, we taught people in the past about what the police should expect from the community, but there's never been what should the community expect from the police. So the best way to do that is to bring people that are actually from the community to the academy to teach officers on the expectations that the community wants from the police, and that's something that we're going to continue. The other thing I'm doing is, once this class graduates from field training, their first week in the field, when they're on their own, will be spent in a one-week orientation class sponsored by the community. So we want those officers to be acclimated, to be welcomed by the community, to understand the dynamics of the community that they're going to be patrolling, so that they can be able to respond and respect people better, and also be able to have an impact in reducing crime in that particular community.
Thank you, Chief. Here's another panelist with another question.
Hello, Chief. My name's Aaliyah Carney. I'm a homeschool student, 17 years old, and I'm here with Oakland Youth, 18 years old, and I'm here with Oakland Youth Commission. As a follow-up question, do you think officers would be more sensitive to different communities if they grew up or lived in Oakland? And if the answer is yes, what's your plan to hire more officers from Oakland?
I don't really, in a perfect world, we'd like to have most of our officers from Oakland. Lieutenant Armstrong was born and raised in Oakland, and he's a poster child for what we want out of officers that are born and raised in Oakland. But unfortunately, that's not the case when you're recruiting and trying to hire a lot of people, because not everyone in Oakland wants to be police officers. So if that, if we can change that, then that would obviously make my job easier. But I don't think you necessarily have to be born and raised in Oakland to be good police officers. I mentioned earlier, you should be from an urban environment. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and I can tell you that my growing up is probably 10 times as worse than probably your worst kids in Oakland because of some of the dynamics that I grew up in. But that means that I'm also exposed and experienced in dealing with a lot of things that are happening in Oakland. I think the bottom line is we look for people with good character. Okay, if you have good character, I will hire you. We hire for character and train for competence. So those are things that we look for in someone that we're going to hire.
We now have a question from Anthony.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
That's good. My name's Anthony McMath. I go to Hercules High School, and I'm in 11th grade, and I'm with the Oakland Youth Commission. My question is, how does OPD intend to address and or repair community relations in some communities, especially in communities of color?
Okay. We understand that there's a lot of distrust between the police and the community. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of it really has to start with how we recruit people for the organization, how we train them in the academy, and what exposure do they get to the community once they're out in the field. So by starting with that cycle, I think we have a chance to really impact how the community relationship works. We also have an opportunity for the community to learn about the police department. That's through our Citizens Police Academy. We have a class that starts here on March the 4th. Last year we graduated our largest class, which is about 45 people. And that's really an opportunity for the community to learn about what's going on in their police department. It's 13 weeks long, and you get an exposure as to when you ride along with someone, what else is taking place in the city. I would also encourage that in order to build that relationship, that people be honest about what they're doing in the community and some of the responsibilities that they need to take in terms of crime reduction and ensuring that the people in their community aren't creating violent or not committing violent crimes and robbing people. One of the biggest challenges I have as a police officer or as a police chief is convincing people to cooperate with the police. Okay? We're not there all the time. In fact, we're there very few times, but we rely on the community to help us find bad guys and bad people and take them to jail. And until the community starts stepping up to take part in that, we're not going to have an impact on violent crime. We're starting to see some signs of the community really taking charge of that. And I think a lot of it has to do with the relationship between the community and the police in some areas of Oakland. And I'd like to see that replicated throughout the city, not just in certain parts of Oakland.
Chief, thank you. We've come to our last question from a panelist.
Hi, my name is Kamari Quinones. I go to Bishop O'Dowd High School. I'm in the 9th grade, and I'm with the Oakland Youth Commission. This is a big picture question, Chief. What is your vision to stop the epidemic of violence and reduce crime, and how can we as youth be a part of your plan?
I think, as I mentioned earlier, there's a number of ways to do that. One, having the adequate staff to be able to address crime in Oakland. That's the first step. So the city has taken steps to improve the staffing levels of the police department, not just by hiring police officers, but by hiring civilians as well. Because for as many officers that we hire, we have to probably hire a portion of the staff has to be the support staff from the civilian staff. Second is really my vision for policing in Oakland, and I bought my sheet. I could read off what my vision is really to build trust within the community so that the community starts to take responsibility for reducing crime in Oakland as well. And that comes with people attending more neighborhood crime prevention meeting, people attending the Citizens Police Academy, people contacting us through whatever social media network they want, through Nixle or some of our tip lines, to really help us solve a lot of our crimes. In terms of the youth, obviously my being here along with Lieutenant Armstrong is a step in the right direction. I want to have more interaction with the youth. I'm open to any suggestions you have in terms of how the youth can be involved in reducing crime, because I think you do have a very valid voice. It's a voice that I want to hear. I want to hear often, but I also want to hear solutions as well. One of the things that, and Lieutenant Armstrong can tell you, I don't like to hear a bunch of people whining and complaining about all the problems that we have. I kind of know that already. I'm more apt to listen to you if you tell me about some of the solutions. And a lot of the solutions that the ways that we can improve crime comes from the public themselves, comes from the community. So I'm very open to how people are willing to tell us how they want to resolve the crime. We have to work together in order for us to do that.
You guys have any question for us?
Yeah, I have about 25 questions I brought with me. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So my question is, what do you guys think we can do as a group, as youth? What would you like to know? If you were in my shoes, what would you do to fight crime in Oakland, reduce violent crime in Oakland?
Understand that? What would we do in your shoes? Yes. Well, what I would do in your shoes, no disrespect, but I would personally try to find the aspects of the reasons why the people are doing the things that they're doing, not necessarily just locking them away and throwing them in jail for the crime that they probably had no sense of committing. I believe that you should give them certain types of counseling sessions depending on the crime. If they commit a huge crime, then no doubt, yes, you will send them to prison. But if someone does something as little as petty theft or an issue that has no relevance towards the high crime in life, I would sort of try to get an understanding rather than trying to destroy their life by a small crime that could have been prevented. I would try to understand their lifestyle and what can I do to help them rather than just increasing the numbers of jails and all that kind of stuff and shutting schools down. That's what I would do. No disrespect, sir.
Open dialogue. I asked for your suggestions, so I want to hear it. Anyone else? Any other suggestions? If you were in my shoes, what would you do to fight crime in Oakland? Yes.
Well, I think for one, being able to see your guys' faces more out in the community. Just for example, this event today, we came kind of to you guys, we asked if you guys could join us, I believe. Also, maybe getting more involved in schools, just like you said you have police officers, so you said that you have, instead of you say I go, probably getting more involved and getting to know us as students, because I know you said you're open to new suggestions and everything, but I think it's like vice versa. If you give us some, feedback, we could give you some too. So if we see you putting in effort and coming to us, then we can go to you too. It's more of an open relationship. So, yeah.
It's kind of in reference to what he stated earlier. I think maybe just looking at the sincerity of the crime that was committed, because if you take someone, put them in jail for something that's not that serious and they have to serve a big amount of time, when they come home, they can't have public housing, they can't work at a lot of places. So what do you expect them to do besides do the same thing they just done to get where they were?
My only question for you guys is that I like your suggestions, and some of the things that you mentioned we use McCullum Youth Court and Center for those lower level crimes, right? So, but my question to you is that how do you guys get engaged in what we're doing? Like, this is a good start, but it shouldn't end here. So any suggestions on what you guys as a group would like to do with us? I mean, like the chief said, we're open to working with you guys. We're open to hearing your suggestions, but we don't want this to end today. We like for you guys to, if there's something, one of the things that we have at the schools that we patrol now is sort of like a youth commission on campus where we take suggestions from students. And so we like suggestions from you guys as well, but not just suggestions, but how you want to participate, how you want to help us with mentoring, or you guys are all in your teens. How can you be a part of changing crime? I'm from Oakland, so I say to you that, my thought was when I became a police officer was that I wanted to make my community safer. Not everybody has to become a police officer in order to make their community safer, but you have to participate. So I think that's the question from me to you guys. How do you participate in making your own community safe?
Well, I think for one, we are kind of doing it. We're part of these organizations, so I think that's a big step for each of us. Like, we actually came out here and we got together with who we're with, like all city council. I think that's something big for me. And that's not all I do. I'm involved in a lot of programs personally. I feel like I am a big leader in my community with people who know me and people who know the work that I've done. I know a lot of the programs, we do have workshops about, your rights with police officers as well. So I think even having you guys participate in those type of programs would be nice, just seeing your side and not seeing it, all dressed out in a suit. I heard you say that, you dress down sometimes. Maybe trying to fit in with us a little when you do those type of programs. That would be nice to see.
So, I kind of forgot what I was going to say, but one thing I was actually thinking about is, like, I'm kind of old school. So it's like, when I see a lot of this stuff, I think of, like, what you see in, like, the old school movies. Like, everybody in town know who the sheriff is, know who the chief is. Like, the cops go by, they know who Mrs. Wilson is. Like, like, back then it seems like the cops were about the community, and as time went on, it was diverse, and I feel like we're becoming too diverse. So basically what I'm thinking is, what if OPD collaborated with the community and through more community events that would bring the community together? Also with youth, you can have something where you can have like a junior police team, some like where it's like the community has some like more with the police, like more like, I'm not trying to say like on the police level, but not as much. Like they're not carrying a gun or anything on them, but basically kind of like a young policeman in training type of thing. And, just interacting more with the community, like having more events, having more things that bring us together like this. So like you said, why should it end here? So I'm thinking besides the gun buyback and all that, Oakland should just start throwing big stuff. Like the only big thing we have is First Friday, and it seems like ignorance is trying to ruin that. And I honestly believe that we shouldn't let ignorance beat that. 'Cause I feel like if we stop that, then on Fridays we're still looking for something to do. So I'm thinking we should just start throwing more frequent big events besides First Friday and all things like that.
Well, if you're looking for an opportunity to be involved in law enforcement at an early age and not have a gun and a badge, we have a police cadet program that you can be a part of. It's for people between 18 and 21. You have to be enrolled in college and taking some college classes. The goal of that program is to prepare you to become a police officer. So, but it's also a paying job. So you get paid. I'm actually hiring 8 cadets here soon. So if you're interested, that's something that you should look at. They don't carry a gun, but they do work in different parts of the organization. They're out in the field sometimes. They take reports. They write tickets. But it's a good way for you to learn about policing Oakland and get paid. And if it's something you like to do, then we obviously want to encourage you to become police officers.
Chief Jordan, Lieutenant LaShawn Armstrong, thank you for listening to us here on Youth Focus. We'd like to invite you to come back before the end of the year, so together we can see what progress has been made on the things we've talked about today.
Thank you to our panelists from the high schools and the organizations throughout Oakland. And a final thanks to you for watching us here on Youth Focus here on KDOL. We welcome your feedbacks and suggestions. Just as we want people to listen to us, we will listen to you. See you again soon.